Eleanor is sodden from the rain, but no longer cold. The air inside the maze is warmed by the large puddles of bubbling molten tar. Yellow fumes hang low to the ground, a vaguely unpleasant odor. Eleanor pulls some hard jerky from a pouch and chews it, wetting her mouth by wringing water from her cloak. She walks to the left, and the wall on her right begins to arc and widen to a semicircle with 3 openings wide enough to traverse. She faces these paths, steps closer to listen at each black opening. From each she hears nothing, and smells only musty air. But a falling pebble brings Eleanor's attention to the top of the maze wall, and there she spots a pale scuttling shape dart out of sight. Then another. A pair of large, colorless eyes peer over the wall to her right, and she gasps as a goblin-esque creature crawls up and over, then toward her, on 4 spindly legs. It is very pale, with tufts of white hair growing here and there. Its mouth is a drooping slit on a flat, ovoid face. Long, narrow ears stick out on either side of its head at right angles. Eleanor takes a step back, assessing its intent. She rolled a 9 on the chart, so it is somewhat friendly. The creature takes a few steps forward, head cocked at an angle, and stops 5 feet from Eleanor. A stream of jabber issues from the creature's mouth, punctuated with sweeping ear movements. The tone is inquisitive, but Eleanor shakes her head, understanding not a word. "I'm sorry, I do not speak your language." The creature listens attentively, but she can tell it doesn't understand her words any better. She gestures toward the 3 doorways, pointing to each in turn. "Which way should I go?" The goblin looks to the doorways and back to Eleanor. It gestures to each, more jabber and slightly excited tone. When it points again to the middle opening, the creature's voice lowers and slows. There is an air of warning to its unintelligible blather. A sharp whistle pierces the air from somewhere hidden within the walls. The creature sniffs, and with a single backward glance, climbs up and over the wall, somehow gripping with its hairy, pointed feet. There is another long, chirruping whistle, then another and a third. A shiver grasps Eleanor and shakes her out of her reverie. Feeling suddenly very exposed, she walks toward the first opening and peers inside once more before entering. The light from outside illuminates the passage at first, but as it turns sharply left, less and less is visible. The stone surface of the ground is cracked and crumbling. Tiny puddles of tar catch at Eleanor's soft leather shoes and threaten to pull them off her feet. Her hands brush lightly at the walls of the tunnel, which are moist and slick with slime and moss. A glimmer of light is visible ahead, so she pushes forward cautiously. Eventually, the tunnel opens up into a square chamber, and light pierces the gloom through several cracks in the stone overhead. Her nostrils prickle with the foul odor of decay. Blinking in the light, her eyes adjust enough that she can make out shelves loaded with books and scrolls against the far wall. There is an unlit fireplace on the right, with a chimney that passes through the roof. An old and dusty rug covers most of the floor, moldy in places from exposure to the elements. A furry lump of inert flesh lies off to the side, flies buzzing around it, the source of that smell. She moves toward it silently and prods the mass with the tip of her sword. It does not move, but many more flies are disturbed momentarily before returning to their feast. Eleanor crouches down and peers closely, making out canine features and a thick iron collar attached to a chain anchored to the wall. A dead dog. She moves to the shelves, squinting at the books and scrolls. The first one she reaches for begins to crumble at the touch. As delicately as possible, she sorts through the shelves, looking for anything that might still have value. She makes a presence roll. 13, success. Of all the treasures that might have once rested on these rotting shelves, only one scroll plate case appears to be intact. It is made of carved bone, and it is sealed with a wax stopper. Cracking open the seal, she draws from within a roll of cracked vellum. Unrolling it, she notes runes of power. The runes have an oily, unclean feel to them. In the common tongue, the scroll bears a title, 9 Violet Signs Unknot the Storm. The vellum is embellished with stylized images of lightning bolts. She returns the scroll to its case and straps it to her belt with leather thongs. Wondering if this might be a safe place to rest, she examines the fireplace. Old dry logs are stacked neatly, and she considers lighting them. Then she glances back at the dog and spies a small, ornate chest. Was that there a moment ago? She kneels in front of the chest and notes that it is also embellished with arcane runes. She examines them for a clue to their meaning, reaching back into her memory of lessons from the elders. Presence check 6. Fail. They do not seem at all familiar. She sits with the box for a few more contemplative moments and then unlatches the restraints. She hears a faint click. Suddenly, the runes begin to glow an angry red. Elinor flings the box from her and, in a panic, dashes away from it, but the room is filled with light and a roaring thunder, and some concussive force hits her back. Roll agility. Elinor rolled a 19. She subtracts 2 for her armor, but a 17 is still a success. Elinor is flung into the bookcase, and debris rains on her head, but when she dares open her eyes, she finds herself unharmed. The corpse of the dog has been blown apart, innards decorating the walls. Several stones are loosened from the ceiling, and she begins to fear collapse. She stumbles back through the tunnel, coughing in the dust, until she again reaches the outside and faces the 3 openings before her.